Welcome to another Keelhauled podcast. I'm your host, CaptainLogun, and we've got a lot of Sea of Thieves news to cover today, so tie yourselves to the mast and hold fast. Ahoy there, pirates. I hope you had yourselves a good week and a good weekend. I know I did. This week, we are going to be talking about the latest drops that happened for both Grog Monet as well as the Twitch drops, and we have a brand new Sea of Thieves podcast that came out a bit ago. It was about 10 or 11 days as of the time of the recording. We're going to be talking about that. It is the brand new year, and we have a whole lot of Sea of Thieves to look forward to in the coming seasons. We're going to get into all of that and more on this week's episode of Keelhauled Podcast. But before I get into any of that, I have to thank the patrons. They are the ones that are supporting this content and making sure that they are supporting towards getting new systems set up with the last graphics card and a mule drive, or working towards the Sea of Thieves Fest in Ohio. My wife and I just bought our reservations for the hotels for that. So we are for sure definitely going. And then we're going to be working on plane tickets and travel after that. So very excited to see everyone again. I've already been talking to a couple of people about it, and I'm looking forward to checking this one out because I think Doug has got a lot in store. And I think he's definitely really excited to kind of see like what this year 2 is going to be, given that is going to be 3 days worth of content. It's going to be fantastic. But to thank the patrons who are supporting that and funding that, I really appreciate it. So thank you to People's Republic, L Cute Balls, Blue Turtle V1, Captain Chonky, Captain Hatchet, Captain Hayes, Chateau Noof, Super Pack, Zombie Killer, Cloud, Cosmic Johnson, Static Mirror, Davram TV, El Jefe Esteban, Fergatron, Godhammer 6, I'm the Panda Now, Jorby Jorbs, Carl Embo, Kazia the Aficionado, Cryptic Slayer, Lumpy SRQ, Evil Morpheus, Space Admiral Oars, Murphy Lives, Mutinous Max, Nipperkim, Norwegian, Raja the Brave, Regis Stella the Brony Pirate, Rust Belt Kid, Skamelt 666, Cam Dasm, Tommy D, TN Professor, Real Big Tuna, Big Bad Pad, Mina Fairy, Anthony N. Jr., Captain J. Rat of the Flaming Cold Sore, The Lore Chronologist Deadeye Dre, Hager Owl, Jeff H., Evil Martha, Peter Miller, Rooski Doo, Thor Von Blitz, Windsor Chris, Luke Lore, the Insipid Ghost, and Zam Wow. Thank you all so much for your love, for your support. I really appreciate it. Obviously, make sure you guys are taking care of yourself before you're taking care of me. Other than that, let's get into it. Ahoy there, pirates. I hope you're having a good start to your new year. I am doing my best to do so. I have a beverage of choice. It is a very specific type of beverage. That is an adult beverage. And as such, I've decided to kind of have a more relaxed kind of episode going into 2020. We're going to take things kind of chill and see how things go. No expectations. We're going to just let things come at us with Sea of Thieves and see where we feel when it arrives. There's been a lot of discussion with just how this current season is, if people have been enjoying it and stuff like that. And honestly, going into 2024, I want to take 2023 and I want to bottle it up and say, you know what? Rare took about a year off from Sea of Thieves to make a Monkey Island game, and they did a really good job with it. And then they're coming back strong for 2024 to focus on Sea of Thieves. So Sea of Thieves, we're going to kick it off. We're going to see how things go, and I'm not going to have any expectations for it. But we got an official podcast. This was the end of the year one before everyone kind of took their break, and it's been great to see some of the devs kind of sharing their experiences over the last couple weeks. If you guys remember, I didn't have an episode last week, which was weird. It was very odd. I wanted to have an episode, but at the same time, I told myself I wouldn't. That was going to be a Christmas gift to me, was I wasn't going to worry about getting an episode out. And to make up for that, I wanted to kind of just go over the Sea of Thieves podcast episode that they put out. This was 11 days ago, so I know many of you have probably kind of thought about it. Listen to it if you haven't listened to it. It's fun, it's laid back, and it is mostly just kind of resetting expectations for 2024. So now that we're in 2024, it'll be very interesting to see how things go. But before we get into that, I want to make sure that I get some of the time sensitive things out for you to know. So if you haven't already, make sure that you are going on to Twitch if you want to get more of the Frozen Horizon set. They are going all out. You do still have to watch 1 hour each item, and you do have to claim that. Again, I have to shout out Automatic Twitch. It's an extension that you can put into Chrome. There's others out there that will automatically claim channel points, drops, all those kind of things that they want you to interact with. This covers that for you. Then what happens is you just find a favorite streamer who has drops in their title or a Twitch partner. And this one is actually one of the ones where you can watch any participating Sea of Thieves stream. It doesn't specify that it has to be a partner in this case. But you do have to watch. There are 7 different items, 1 hour per, 7 hours total. It's going until January 5th, 10 a.m. UTC, which is 2 a.m. Pacific Standard Time, 5 a.m. Eastern Standard Time. And to get these, you're going to be getting the Tundra hair, the belt, the dress, the frigid hair, the boots, the hook, and the jacket, all under the Frozen Horizon set. Now, a lot of these folks out there are probably saying, well, I've already got these. Do I really need to worry about it? Nah. You don't have to. If you've got them, don't worry about it. If you don't, this is the first time that you've maybe jumped into Sea of Thieves. It's a cool looking set, not intended, to be able to get pretty easily just by hanging out and watching some of your favorite streamers. Shout out to, let's see, Behaving Beardly, Fuzzy Bond. Who else did I jump into? Lady Haradra, trying to think. Carides, always Carides. Lots of other folks that I just kind of went about and just kind of got a little bit of time here and there. Followed whoever was, getting raided, things like that. And it was just nice to kind of hear some good conversation. In fact, I'm going to be trying to get Fuzzy Bond scheduled in for this new year. We were having a conversation today, actually, where we were talking about Arena versus Hourglass and why Hourglass is a mistake. So it was a good conversation that hopefully if we get a chance to, I want to bring them in to talk about that, because I think it'll be a much better forum than trying to have a conversation via stream and chat. It's just really hard for them to kind of follow, because they're also trying to, Fuzzy's trying to put on an entertainment stream, and we're trying to have a serious conversation. It's tough. So we're going to try and work on that. Hopefully we do. That'd be fantastic to get him in. I know I do want to get a conversation with Behaving Beardly and Beardageddon together to chat about Skull and Bones. I would love to actually have a group of us to kind of sit down and talk about Skull and Bones, just to kind of have that kind of out there. And I think I might actually talk a little bit today about that. I've been thinking about it. I do want to cover that, but I want to get the information out there about the Twitch drops. Additionally, hopefully you did this. Hopefully you guys remembered to log in to Sea of Thieves this weekend. January 2nd at 5 a.m. is the last opportunity for you to log in. All you got to do is log in for Grogmanay, which is the Sea of Thieves version of Hogmanay, which is I believe it's a Scottish New Year's Eve festival where there's just, it's, if you can imagine, it's probably drinking and eating like many of us do during the celebration. And you get your tankard. You get your first annual tankard if you've never played Sea of Thieves. If you missed out on one of the years, then it will add an additional notch. So if you had 1, this would be 2. If you had 2, this would be 3. And if you're like some of us that have been around since Sea of Thieves made maps, you've got your 4th one, because we didn't have one in the first year. They didn't come up with that, but we did have some stuff for the New Year's. It was kind of cool. But now we have our 4th notch in the tankard, the Grogmanay tankard. Very proud of that. Very happy to have that. I still have favorite other tankards, to be honest. I still love my Order of Souls ones. There's some really fantastic tankards. I'm not gonna lie. Over the years, we've had some great tankards. But this is just one that is special. It's kind of like the Golden Sailor cannons, it's just one of those sets that, it's like you had to be there to get it. And if you don't have it, then, you'll have an opportunity to get it eventually. But for those of you that are dedicated out there that have been going every year, you can have a little chip on your shoulder and a little notch on your tankard. So yeah, I kind of want to get into the Skull and Bone stuff. I was thinking about doing a full kind of preview build or like video on this for XEP, but I wanted to talk about it now just to kind of give you guys some heads up on what's going to kind of be coming down the line. So if you don't know, if you're not familiar, if this is all brand new to you, then I wanted to give you a bit of a heads up. So with 2024, Skull and Bones, which was a game that is being produced and developed by Ubisoft, and this is coming out of I believe the Singapore team, but has had a lot of help from across all of the other teams. This is something that's going to be coming out in 2024 for a pirate's kind of life. It's if you're a fan of pirates like I am, you tend to gravitate towards just about anything that has pirate on it. And I wanted to share some thoughts on it. We got a build that was probably one of the last beta builds that we're going to be getting with the Skull and Bones before launch. I can't imagine they're going to be doing another one anytime soon. And overall, what I will say is that we got about 6 hours worth of time to play it. There are going to be a lot of Sea of Thieves streamers who are going to speak very highly of this game. It's going to be new and exciting for them, and they're going to want to talk that up. So what I wanted to do was kind of give my fair approach to it, so that you guys all have like an idea of what I think this game will actually be for everyone that's kind of going into it. If you've never played Skull and Bones, you hear about it and you might want to know a little bit about what to expect. This is going to be a lot like Assassin's Creed Black Flag, where you have a ship and there is a crew that kind of works your ship, but you are effectively the helmsman and the captain at the same time. You will be able to work through the main campaign of the game, which is you getting stranded from a shipwreck and having to kind of build up a crew and your reputation as a pirate from nothing, which is, you know, it is very much kind of like Sea of Thieves in that sense. You know, we started out with nothing, getting into Sea of Thieves, then we had to kind of work our way up to Pirate Legend. The infamy system in Skull and Bones is very much just a go out, do stuff, and you will get infamy through quest completions. There is a kind of single player campaign. This is a multiplayer game. There are going to be separate servers for PvE and PvP, depending on what type of gameplay you want to have. And there's going to be AI ships and monsters, as well as other crew members to have to worry about on the seas, depending on the type of servers that you want to play through. But as the helm and captain, you are kind of in control of everything. You don't go away from your helm the way you do in Sea of Thieves. You do kind of control the players on your, or the, you know, the NPCs on your ship, to do all the firing and rigging, all of the kind of chores that you would normally do in a Sea of Thieves game with other crew members, or if you're on a sloop by yourself. Those are all going to be done by NPCs, and for effectively throughout the rest of the game. You do start off with a very small ship, and you're asked to go out and just get supplies. And then when you come back, you're able to kind of build tools. You'll start to open up more and more the more you play, as you kind of work through some of the introductory quests, which are going to be the tutorial proceedings to how to get a bigger ship, bigger crew, what your crew likes, you know, getting supplies for them, getting supplies for your ship, having those all in your inventory when you go out so that you can be able to repair. And as you're going out, you're going to be asked to come up against other NPC crews, which are part of a rival faction of pirates and privateers. And the world itself is going to look fairly good. This is all kind of set around a historical period that is roughly accurate to historical pirates, but obviously takes place in an area that is made up with characters that are made up. So fully fictional, but grounded in reality. You're going to have wild weapons that you're going to be able to add to your ships. You can swap out the cannons for different types, and it's all going to be stat based. So one of the things that Sea of Thieves does differently is they operate off of horizontal progression, which means if your cannons are on your boat, your cannons operate at the same distance and damage as everyone else's cannons. You can't get better cannons with time. You can get better with cannons with time and practice, but you can't get better cannons. Now you can get better ammo for different situations, but that ammunition is an augment to actually dealing damage. Chain shots will do more damage to masts than cannons will, whereas cursed cannonballs are going to change things about a ship or players that you can't do with regular cannons, fire bombs, blender bombs, things like that. Whereas with Skull and Bones, it is going to be effectively a power grind. There are going to be people that are higher level than you who will have earned better weapons and more armor and have better repairing abilities. And as such, if you go into a PvP server outside of the main hubs where you can moor your ship, you are going to be on open waters. And if you're in a PvP server, that means that someone who is higher level, or yourself as a higher level person, can start to be that big predator. It's going to be a tantalizing thing for a lot of folks. It's also going to be a deterrent for a lot of folks, which is why they have split up their servers to have PvE versus PvE, or you know, they're going to have player versus environment versus player and environment. If you go into a PvP server, chances are you will still find a lot of PvE encounters, as you're still going to be able to access all of that story as far as we know. I don't think they've had any changes to that. But for all intents and purposes, your goal is to raise your ranks in infamy until you become whatever, you know, the pirate king or pirate lord is. You're going to be able to choose your crew, how they look, how you look, how your ship looks. All of that's going to be customizable. They're going to have things in the future that will augment the way you can have your ship look. You can build better ships. Ships have class types. So there are like damage ones, there's tanky ones, there's healing ones. A lot of that feels very rudimentary at this point. It doesn't feel like there's really a big difference between the different ship types. So I don't know that I would get caught up on that per se. I would just kind of focus on finding cannons that deal with different situations and ensuring that you are sailing in a manner that allows you to use those in your best bet. You do have like 4 cannons on the front of your ship that you can use. And as you're kind of firing, you can kind of see like, okay, well, this is the rate of angle that these cannons have. If you turn more to port or stern, or not port or stern, port or starboard, you'll gain access to, you know, your side cannons, on port cannons or starboard cannons, and be able to, you know, use those and then kind of turn the boat so that you can kind of turn and use those 4 cannons again. Or you can just change it up and get some kind of ballistics running where you can use mortar cannons. It gets kind of crazy pretty quickly after a while. And after playing 6 hours, I've been playing this game for a long time. I can't talk about anything prior to this latest experience because those are still locked under NDA. But what I will say off of my experience that happened this most recent beta, the game is still in a very much the same state that it was when I've kind of seen footage of it in the past. That's probably about the safest way I can explain it. So they have done some things that have changed it, I think, for the better. I think that the game is in a much better state than it has in the past based on what I've seen. Or what I can speak to. And I think this is going to be a game that comes out, and there's a good chance that a lot of Sea of Thieves streamers will really latch onto it because they have the time to invest in it. They have that desire to really try and grind as fast as you can. And you are going to see a lot of folks jump over to it for a while. Whether or not it has staying power is going to really determine whether or not this game sinks or swims. And I have yet to see well into the future of the game to be able to accurately judge if this thing will stay afloat beyond a few months. We'll have to see from that. But the potential is there, and the gameplay itself is still fun. It is still very rooted in Assassin's Creed Black Flag, but that's not a bad thing, because that game does have a really good fun sailing aspect to it. They've also got a lot of stuff that is going to look fresh and exciting. I can definitely speak to some of it, as far as like the sea monster fights that really feel epic. And you know, maybe that's just a level thing. You know, I remember when when I was sailing around and doing them, very difficult but very exciting. And there's other stuff that they've got down the line that I can't talk about right now that I think will emulate things that Sea of Thieves currently has with world events, that people will probably get a kick out of. And it's all, you know, different style. This is a far more mature and realistic, I guess, to an extent, more realistic approach to a pirate game. We've had games like Atlas in the past, or Blazing Sails, where we kind of go off into the two extremes, where Blazing Sails is more cartoony and strictly PvP focused with no campaign, whereas like Atlas, far more survival based, far more based around having up big fleets of people working together to maintain outposts that you build up yourself, much more like Rust, or I can't think of another survival game right now, but it is effectively Ark, but just a pirate version. Been going around for a long time at this point now. I think they're in their 3rd or 4th year. And Blazing Sails, small development team, able to really kind of capitalize on the sway that comes from Sea of Thieves streamers playing their game. But realistically, like it is going to be one of those things where they kind of dip in and dip out of that. Skull and Bones, I think, has that same appeal, where anytime there's a new update, there's going to be a group of people that are going to jump into it and check it out. With this being a Ubisoft title, one of the things that I think everyone should kind of keep in mind is I would not recommend pre-ordering any game that is not out and has reviews on. I would not recommend anyone buying any seasonal pass version of this game until you've had a chance to get into it and play it and see if it's a game that you're actually going to enjoy. Outside of that, I will say that Ubisoft tends to subsidize the cost of their games through extra types of monetization. So they do have seasons, they do have expansions, they do have cosmetics. All of those things are potential revenue sources for the players that are playing those games. As such, it is usually likely that within a year, there is going to be a relatively good discount on the game. Now, given that this game is a multiplayer game, unlike some of their other titles that they've had out in the last year, like Assassin's Creed Mirage, Avatar, The Frontiers of Pandora, the one that I'm blanking on right now, then you're going to see this is going to be heavily dependent on how many people jump into it and stick with it. Ubisoft is not the type to really kind of ditch a game too quickly. They do ditch games. I'm not saying that they don't, but I do think that they will probably give this game a good year to see how it runs. And if it does well, then there's a good chance they'll keep working on it. But I mean, Assassin's Creed Valhalla has had plenty of expansions, and it wasn't until maybe the last year or so since its release that they finally said, okay, we're good on Assassin's Creed Valhalla. We've done just about everything we want to do with it. We're going to move on to another game. So we'll have to kind of see how things go with that. But for Skull and Bones, it is a fun game. I did enjoy my time with it. I did play 5 hours of the 6, but unfortunately, the experience that I had with the beta is one I'm comfortable saying is something I'm familiar enough with that I don't have to play it multiple times over, if that makes sense. When this game comes out, chances are I will probably jump into it. I will probably check it out. I am very curious to see kind of if there are any good story bits beyond the guy is upset at other crew or other faction for what they're doing on his territory, and you rising through the ranks catches his attention until you eventually either murder him and take over or murder them and become his right-hand man. A lot of it's going to depend on if there's any kind of meaningful connections that can be made with any of the characters to see if that's worth investigating. At the moment, I will say that dialogue choices in the game are worthless. They mean absolutely nothing. It doesn't matter which thing you choose. It will not actually impact the story in any significant manner. Unlike I would say Starfield or Cyberpunk, maybe Baldur's Gate 3, more RPG based games that have like impactful decisions. This one's more or less like, what flavor of yes or what flavor of no do you want to say to the guy that's going to be the main point of interaction for you for the majority of the game, giving you the quests that you need to be able to continue raising your rank of rising up through the ranks by increasing your infamy throughout the seas until eventually you either usurp him or he gets killed and you have to take over. We'll have to kind of see how that all plays out at this point. It's not going to be, I think, the main driver for a large majority of Sea of Thieves streamers. I think they're going to jump in, do what they have to do to unlock the ship types that they want to get, and then eventually work their way through the ranks so that they can get the best loadout, which will get min-maxed. And then eventually they'll just kind of sail around taking on other people. And that'll kind of be like their experience with Skull and Bones, I think, after, when it launches. It is something that is actually coming out next year. There has been a lot of questions because of how many delays that they've had with this game. This is the first time I've actually seen them fly out influencers or content creators, streamers predominantly, to be able to get hands-on and discuss what's actually going to be happening with Skull and Bones. Now, a lot of that is stuff that, as far as I know, is considered NDA until launch. But if you want to know when this is coming out, it's coming out February 16th, and there's a good chance that it will actually stick to that date. There is some stuff that's coming out around that time that I think folks will be interested in. Banishers, Ghosts of New Eden, which I think is going to be a sleeper hit. Helldivers 2, Suicide Squads before that, about the week before that. But Mario versus Donkey Kong, Nightingale, which honestly I think folks ought to keep an eye out for. And then later on towards the end of February is going to be that Final Fantasy VII Rebirth. That will probably take everything by storm. So Skull and Bones is probably going to want to stick to that February 16th date and get out before Final Fantasy VII. So there's at least a good week's worth of discussion to be had by it. Otherwise, they're most likely going to want to push out till after the March timeframe, because there's going to be some good stuff in March. We don't know a whole lot about April, but they're better. It's better that they get out on February 16th, which, as far as I know, is a lock for them. I haven't seen them go gold yet, which is usually the indicator that they are ready for mass production of discs, which is generally the kind of go ahead for them to launch. Always a good chance that there's going to be a day one patch, but servers will be active. Outside of that, or any kind of game breaking bug, I don't expect them to be delaying. Honestly, they've only got like maybe 3 or 4 stints. And honestly, I would say probably, 2 to 3 stints before this game goes live. And then it's just going to be a constant run at that point. They're not going to have any opportunity to really stop. They're going to have to keep developing, working on fixes, taking care of exploits, issues like that with the game that they just have to do, while also building new content and looking to address the revenue stream that this game is going to be for the next X number of years until it either continues on its merry little way or it shuts down. There's kind of 2 options there. But that's kind of Skull and Bones in a nutshell. I had a really good time with it. I think there's potential. I don't think that a lot of people are going to find the thing that they like about Sea of Thieves in this game. I think you're still going to have to find that within Sea of Thieves. There's a potential game on Steam right now called Void Crew, which takes place in space, which if you're a fan of Sea of Thieves, that's probably your best bet to get a different similar experience as far as like working with a crew to do remedial tasks throughout like your ship. And everyone has a role, everyone has a job, and everyone has to work and communicate together to be able to overcome objectives, things like that. But it's all in space. Early access right now, but very, very interesting to kind of see where that goes. But that's kind of Skull and Bones in a nutshell. I think we have a lot before we find out what this game is actually going to be. It has been in production hell for the last 7 or 8 years, and I'll be happy to see them finally get to the finish line and see where it goes from there. Next up on today's docket, let's dive into the latest episode 13 of the Sea of Thieves official podcast. This is 2023 in review. It was 11 days ago, and the numbers on this actually, I mean, they're not terrible as far as looking at the YouTube. I will say that let's see if we go back to past episodes. Let's take a look at. Let's see, 12, a little bit more, engagement on this one. I kind of wonder like where their other ones are at as well too. Let's see, that's 12, 13, no, that's 11. So yeah, it looks like this is actually one of the lower engagements that they've had on one of their videos. Doesn't seem like this is kind of normal for them. It looks like this is kind of a lower, a lot of people talking about it. I think one of the reasons, and we'll kind of get into this as well too, one of the reasons for that is that this wasn't really covering big things. Like this is more just like a conversational approach to what 2024 is going to look like and what to expect. Whereas at least with like the past episodes, we've seen them talk about like the core of Sea of Thieves and having a bigger team, the 5th anniversary weekend, and what to be expected with that. Whereas like with episode 12, they were diving into like SOT Fest and revealing Legend of Monkey Island and the delay for season 10. So there was a lot more to talk about that. But overall, it definitely feels like they didn't have anything that they really wanted to talk about specifically with this one, just kind of diving into what 2024 can show us. About a year ago, they had episode 9. It looks like, honestly, it's about the same metrics on YouTube. So it looks like they're kind of, par for the course for this, which is still good numbers, honestly. Like it's not going to be same kind of numbers as like a panel or something that they kick off with like a launch trailer. Their launch trailers honestly were some of the things that got them the most attention when they would do one of those. A lot of people would go and watch those, which is kind of a shame is why we don't see those too often these days. We really don't see too many of those. Hoarder Hunt obviously this year got a lot of attention with as far as like engagement goes and stuff. A lot of people really kind of trying to suss out some of the mysteries that were in that whole it's very interesting year this year. I was thinking about it. Very interesting. But I wanted to dive into the latest episode, and we've got a lot to cover. So I'm going to kind of keep things brevity and just give my opinions on what I think they said right and what I think they said wrong, where I think they need to be focusing on things and kind of what they kind of took away from the year as far as what I took away from the year. So at the start, they kind of kicked things off with a quiz. The quiz was, honestly, I really like the quiz because it kind of is testing Mike and Joe and whoever else happens to be on at the time, some of their Sea of Thieves lore, which when you ask Mike has a brilliant brain as far as remembering all this stuff because he was working deep into it. Joe still knows a fair amount, but obviously he's more disconnected from the lore aspect of the game. It kind of focuses on the health of the game as like an actual game. Whereas some of the other designers and community members, they tend to know a fair amount, but everyone's got blind spots and you're so focused on what you're working on. You're not going to be, you're not going to be like a lore hound, like some of us are. And even like myself, like I've most definitely forgotten enough about what's been going on that I am constantly thinking like, I still don't remember a lot of the stuff that we're waiting to get answers for some of the lore. But they wanted to kind of kick things off, and one of the first things that I kind of typed out as I was writing up my notes, it says Mike agrees that they have neglected the sandbox and that the refocus is going to be on the kind of content that we want to have as the community. And this is kind of them saying, like, we realize what happened, and that was they focused a lot on the mystery. And then they focused a lot on guilds, and then they focused a lot on the Legend of Monkey Island. And in their pursuit to bring some of these big 3 features to the game, they lost sight of what was important about Sea of Thieves from a day-to-day perspective. And I think that is one of the biggest takeaways. I think I might be coming back to that throughout this discussion. But it was nice to know that they are proud of what they've done. They have effectively created an entire game this year for Legend of Monkey Island. Like, the amount of time that you have to spend doing the Tall Tales is comparable to Return to Monkey Island. If you've played through Return to Monkey Island, fantastic game, by the way, even though a lot of people were not comfortable or used to the graphics change that they did, the style change that they did for that game. I still think it's a really fantastic game. One of my favorite things that I played this year. I think it was like my indie choice for XEP. I think we were talking about it. I think Legend of Monkey Island or Return to Monkey Island was my indie darling this year. Just of all the games that I played, most definitely the thing that really kind of stuck out in my mind is, you know, that was a really good game, a really fun game, and there was a lot of stuff to think about with that game that I wasn't actually anticipating. Like, I didn't expect to be so retrospective about how I felt about the characters or just the characters and their journey as I played through the game with them, kind of thing. But it was good to see that the content that they are making, they don't regret making it. They just regret how focused they were on it and the stuff that got shifted away from this year as a result. And that is essentially what they're saying they want to do for 2024. They really want to refocus back on the sandbox. And I like that because I think that is a very key thing to keeping people entertained throughout a year's worth of content for Sea of Thieves. It's always nice to have big features. It's always really cool to see something come that just completely shifts the paradigm away from what the norm is right now and brings us into a era that really does kind of like address some of the things that have grown stagnant, which I think is still an issue with Sea of Thieves. Shelly says that she's really proud of guilds and Safer Seas, and that the next step change for Sea of Thieves and what it's going to do for players in the future. They did talk a fair amount about some of the stuff that's coming with Season 11. Now, I actually happen to know some of the things that are coming with Season 11 through the insiders that I won't talk about. And it will kind of explain a little bit about like what they're talking about, but we obviously won't be talking about that here. But if you're curious, just jump onto Sea of Thieves on the Insider program. You'll be able to find out real quick what they're talking about with that step change. But I am really curious to see why they think that feature, if it is the one that I'm assuming is the big one that they're talking about, will inherently change how players play Sea of Thieves. I don't see it being that big of a thing. But then again, I'm looking at a very pinpoint bit of focus on the thing that they're talking about, right? I don't have the full context of the season that they're planning for Season 11. I just have like a knowledge of like what that feature is. But I just don't see that being something that is so game changing to the game that it will really, really change how we play Sea of Thieves, if that makes sense. I think it will help in some ways. I don't think that it'll help in too many ways. I think a lot of people are going to play Sea of Thieves the way they are currently. But we'll have to see. I'm being very neutral right now about that. I don't see it, but I also recognize that I don't have the full context of it. And sometimes when you're trying to find that one spot for that one puzzle piece, stepping back and looking at the whole picture can help you get a better gauge on where that one piece could go. Otherwise, you'll be searching for days. Mike goes on to say that the most requested feature since launch, which was speaking to Safer Seas, was to play in private servers and have the world to yourself, specifically having the world to yourself. What's different today that they went into compared to why this wasn't something that was done originally when they first came out with the game, why they didn't have PvE servers or have like a private server option. They said that the game and the community, the audience, has grown to a size that if you like pirates, there should be something for you. And we're now at the point where they have gone back to the question, which it sounds like based on what Joe's talked to us, that they have this debate every year. You know, how is now the time that we should be doing private servers? And all the way up until this point, it's been, no, we shouldn't. We should focus on adventure. We should make sure that, you know, we're enriching the sandbox. We're working on the things we want to do. We're doing this. And more questions kept coming to the team. Why can't I do this? Why can't I be able to have this? Why isn't it not possible for me to do such and such? And the more of those styles of questions that kept coming up, where the answer would be private servers, it just came back to them saying, I don't know why we aren't doing that now. And it finally crossed that line. There was finally a line where demand for this style of feature was high enough that they finally could not ignore it or say that it wasn't important enough, which, to be clear, that is a lot of the time with features. Like, there are features in the game that we have because the need finally grew to the point where it could not be ignored. And if you don't believe me, I will give you a good example right now. Pirate Legends had nothing to do for 10 levels except for Athena's Fortune. The more time and time went on, the more the community came out and said, hey, Mike, Joe, team, when are we going to have more content for Pirate Legends? Pirate Legends are dreadfully underserved with content. And they said, we want to focus on the majority of players. We want to make sure that we're giving something for everyone, not just a small minority. Now, there could be an argument to say that Pirate Legends are still a large majority of the player base. And you wouldn't be wrong, but there are now enough of them to warrant adding content that is driven and specific to Pirate Legends. And one of the ways that they did that was they added the Thieves Haven Athena's runs. No, the Athena Thieves Haven runs. What is the name of that voyage? The Thieves Haven Arena runs. That sounds like a really bad digestive thing. I don't want to ever say that again. And in fact, I think I'm going to scratch that word from the rest of my vocabulary. Then we ended up getting the revamp effectively to Athena's Fortune, where we got the Legend of the Veil. And even past that, we got Hourglass, which opened up for Pirate Legends to be able to access Hourglass battles, to be able to go and start working on your curses. So it's easy to look and say, like, there is something that originally Rare said, no, we're not going to worry about that right now. That's not our focus. And over time, as the audience grew, as the player base grew, as the number of Pirate Legends grew, they eventually saw that the demand for the end game, or at least additional content, would be more the specific kind of addressal here, was met, and they decided to add content for Pirate Legends. This is no different. Safer Seas is something that has, I guarantee you, been requested since day one. People have been asking for PvE servers before the game came out. I know it because I remember it. And there's probably episodes in the past where we've talked about it as well too. And eventually they decided that now was the appropriate time to be able to do that. One of the things that was very, 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 very poignant about Mike's discussion about this was that Safer Seas should be something that acts as a ramp to get people into high seas easier than the steep leap from never playing the game to instantly thrown into high seas. That is a pretty big leap for asking someone to play a game that they've never played before, that has very little onboarding, mind you. Maiden Voyage is it. And there are always going to be people who like a challenge, but I would argue that a large portion of most gamers don't have the time or mental capacity, not to say that they can't, but that they don't want to. They don't want to expend that much energy to learn how to play a game that isn't going to give them at least a fair amount of hand-holding. To be perfectly honest, I'm playing through Baldur's Gate 3 right now. I'm loving the world. I'm loving the interactions. I am hating how deep this game is because of all the junk I just don't know about D&D. I don't know or care about 80% of the systems in this game, but I love the story that they're telling. I'm very curious about it. I'm very happy with the type of characters that I'm playing with in this story, and I want to progress that. And the game itself is consistently pushing back, and I absolutely hate it for that. It's not my style of game. It really is not. I would have so much more fun if it was a far more linear action-based game. That's just my style. I'm not saying it's wrong to like it. I'm not saying it's a bad game. I'm just saying those are the things that push up against my enjoyment of it. That is the same thing that I want to levy against Sea of Thieves when it comes to new players picking it up on Game Pass on their brand new console that they just got for Christmas, that are looking to play something and see the charts and see that Sea of Thieves is on the charts and doing well. It's like $20 on sale. It's on Game Pass Ultimate. It's just there and accessible for as many people as possible who want to jump into it. And they may not know anything about how this game is. And you can't assume that your learned knowledge or the people that helped gain you that learned knowledge are going to be easily accessible or even desired. And that's why I think Mike has kind of come to the point that Safer Seas is that tool for those players. Try Safer Seas. If you like it, great. Play around in that world, and then when you're ready to continue finishing off your story and progressing into the later stages of the game, move into High Seas. Maybe you've made some friends that have picked it up as well. You've gotten some fun, things like that. That's kind of what his stance is from the actual Sea of Thieves podcast. He says Safer Seas is a ramp to get into higher seas. They don't want to have two forks of the game that are being developed separately. They understand the desire to have adventure in Sea of Thieves or adventures in Sea of Thieves that are coming to Safer Seas. They understand that that is a desire, but that's not something that they want focused on Safer Seas. They want to have things like adventures focused on High Seas, because High Seas is the main way to play Sea of Thieves. One of the things that kind of came up with this is actually Shelly talking about how do you plan content for Safer Seas and High Seas. And they said that one of the nice things is that there is a very clear vision of what Safer Seas is supposed to be and what they create for that. And it is a case-by-case basis, which means that there may be content that comes to both High Seas and Safer Seas. They're not ruling that out. But as far as I can gauge, things that are PvP focused are probably just going to be for High Seas due to the nature and design of what Safer Seas is, which I think makes sense, perfectly makes sense to me. I don't see a problem with that. And it kind of makes it a little bit easier for them going forward as to say like, okay, well, we want the world to grow and progress on High Seas. So most of all of the content will be coming to High Seas. Anything that isn't PvP centric or stuff that we want to reserve for like lore or story or whatever they want, fundamental things will probably move their way down the ladder to Safer Seas. And I'm talking about like types of, ammo things or whatever you want to come up with for ship to ship battles or, tools, not rules kind of things, right? Like chests, crates, things like that. So Mike says they're pretty happy with how things are. And that kind of got us into the discussion of the Skull of Siren song. And Joe kind of came in and said that he really enjoyed a lot of the stories that came from it, that this was something that was part of the co-dev team along with the main team that was being worked on. So they do have a couple other studios that are assisting with content for Sea of Thieves. If you don't know, there are a couple different teams out there working with Rare to be able to continue development. If you guys haven't figured it out, Rare is a small studio with roughly 200-300 devs working on working on Sea of Thieves in addition to Everwild. And if you look at most other studios that are building games as a service that have regular content, those are upwards of like 400 to 600 people. And sometimes those studios have partner studios as well that are doing assets, working on cinematics, doing additional content to help supplement the time it takes to continuously drive a game as a service with regular content on a seasonal basis. Now it's on Rare to commit to that seasonal basis if that's the system that they want to go to, but effectively they made their bed. They will have to choose how that works at the end of the day. Mike actually came in to say that the Skull of Siren Song feels like a classic Sea of Thieves update. At the heart of it, it's very simple. Everyone gets a map. There's a chest. It has a key. You unlock the chest. You take the loot. You turn it in. The desire there is solely based on what people are doing to actually get it. And one of the things that I wanted to touch on, since we're talking about this, is Mike has confirmed on Twitter, which I hate that that's kind of a thing that we have to keep an eye out for, because there's so many times where news comes in through Twitter that is not shared publicly. Well, it's shared publicly, but it's not shared through official channels all the time. And unfortunately, news like that, while fantastic and welcome and very personal, is tough to get to the masses, because then you start having people coming up with their own theories on things, and before you know it, there's like miscommunication. Like what was it? Caleb reached out to me today to show me a Reddit thread, because I don't really do Reddit, because Reddit is a cesspool for all intents and purposes. There's only a small percentage of good that actually ever comes out from Reddit. Most of the time it's not that great. But one of the things that came out from there was a thread that he had shown that was literally saying that Rare was closing the store on January 2nd, and it was, I don't even know if this thread is still up. It is still up. Came out 3 days ago. According to the Sea of Thieves Pirate Perks, the official Rare merch store will be permanently closing on January 2nd, 2024. Any orders placed before then will be honored. I didn't even know Pirate Perks or the store was a thing until a few days ago, so I figured there might be some more people like me out who would like to buy something before it disappears. Hope this helps someone out. They have some nifty stuff there, and the Sea of Thieves sweater is on sale. And the title of this was Rare Store Closing on January 2nd. This is the kind of information that frustrates me, because it is half accurate. Yes, Rare is closing their official Rare merch store. No, it is not a permanent closure. Never have they said that it was a permanent thing. They are switching vendors. This is the second time they've done this. The first time they did it, it was because the company that they hired could not handle the throughput, and delays were becoming a major issue with that vendor. This current vendor is pretty good. They're not perfect, but they have done a fairly good job of getting merchandise to people on a regular basis at a reasonable amount of time for a reasonable cost. Rare is going to be moving with another vendor. I don't know why. I don't know how much of the content that is currently on the store will be shifting over to the new vendor, if that's going to be possible or not. Whatever licensing deals or whatever the things they have to do to get that worked out is going to be on them. We'll find out more, I'm sure, this month. But the problem that I had with this was the information was inaccurate. It was mostly accurate, but it wasn't absolutely accurate. And unfortunately, that brings that calls into question. So if people don't go seeking out the official tweet that they put out saying that it was closing, and they're just looking at the two links that were provided, they're not going to see that this wasn't a permanent decision, because Pirate Perks will persist beyond this until they say otherwise, at which point I will tell you that they said otherwise so that you don't have to worry about it. But that's where sourcing material is so important, that it is frustrating to have problems like this. I don't remember where I got on this tangent, how I got to this tangent, but it all kind of goes back to, let's see, where was I going with this? I can't quite remember where I was going with this, so I apologize. I'm going to revert back, and hopefully you'll tell me in the comments where I came out from this. But Mike was talking about the Skull of Siren Song being a classic Sea of Thieves update. At its heart, it's very simple. The gameplay is there. It's nice to have. And I remember talking about co-devs. Nope, I can't remember. Dang it. I thought I might have had it there for a second. But he goes on to talk about how the Skull of Siren Song was one of the things that they wanted to do at a very old time, or like at a very early stage of development. They wanted to have shared maps. And he went into length about how this was something that they want to explore more of, a different way to bring world events to players outside of just doing some big thing in the sky, which, if we're all perfectly honest with each other, I'm fairly certain that a lot of us are pretty done with the whole thing in the sky. Like, there's a big thing in the sky. It is the world event. Yes, we know. We're just going to wait till the one that we want actually shows up. Most people will ignore most of them, and most of them will go uncontested. There's too much variety. You need to be able to like zero in on the one that you want. And honestly, the only way to do that is to just hop servers. So it's really like most people ignore the world events, and they're going to be addressing that criticism, I think, by looking to see how they can do more of these shared maps. And I think that honestly, that model works, and I think it works really well. I think that their decision to focus it and give cosmetics. Oh, I remember. I got back to that train of thought. Their focus on cosmetics and the 50K that you earn from this not being something that counts towards reputations hurts the actual event itself. Yes, I like the rewards that you get from it. Yes, I will eventually get it when I get around to doing it, because I always end up doing these things solo, and they usually go uncontested at the moment. But I think that's because it's well beyond the point of where the people that were willing to fight over this have already got it done and already gotten their mask and stuff. I've never seen a rush for this. I've stopped rushing for a lot of this stuff to get finished, because I will get it when I get it, and I'm not hurting to get it right now. So I will get it when I naturally decide to kind of stumble upon it. But the thing that I was getting to with the Twitter thing and the Reddit story is that we got information from Mike that actually addressed the fact that the money that you make for this doesn't actually count towards guilds or things like that. And we got confirmation on Twitter that it is something that we are going to be getting in the future. They're aware of it, but for whatever reason, it not counting towards guild rep is something that they are going to address. So, and thanks to Bird of Paradox on Twitter for asking the question to Captain MacGuffin's question, which was 80% of voyages were uncontested, according to the Skull of Siren Song, where no one cared enough to even come near me. Reducing the frequency wouldn't be enough to keep interest in it. It needs to give reputation of any kind. Doesn't even have to make sense in lore, just make it profitable. So gold is not the profit. That is another criticism that I think the community and myself have is that gold is not the profit in this. When the Pirate Lord says it's not about the gold, it's about the glory. The glory for the cosmetics is shorter lived than the gold. And most people probably won't even do it for the gold after a while, because it's easier to get gold elsewhere. And I think that's part of the problem too, is that gold is just too easy to come by at the moment. But Bird of Paradox responded to Captain MacGuffin's Twitter, who Captain MacGuffin, if you don't know, fantastic human being over on the Ancient Isles University Discord, part of the forensics department and one of the boatswains actually, for the hoarder hunt that we had this year. Really great to work with them on the hoarder hunt and just kind of bounce ideas between people for that. But they asked, I am once again asking Rare to give guild rep for Siren Skulls. Mike said it's coming. So this is, again, one of those things where information is being passed along through official channels, but not official Sea of Thieves channels through Mike Chapman, who you can't get a better source than that. But if you're not following or have his tweets on notification like I do, you're going to miss stuff. And it's rough. So it's definitely one of those things where we did get some good information about that, but it is obviously kind of a bummer when, we have to go outside of the normal official channels to be able to kind of keep up with all of the stuff that's going on. And this is definitely one of those cases. So, there was also a little bit of the stuff that was going on about, the lore behind the voice of the Reapers, which again, I have to assume that this is who it is. The person who gives you the curse of flame. The voice is below Flameheart Jr. as far as rankings go. And then Flameheart Jr. is the second in command to Captain Flameheart, who we're going to be seeing this year. But there was a whole thing on Twitter about that was just kind of confirming where the rankings were. 90% of you guys don't care. Totally understand. I'll just wanted to get that out there though. Going back to the Skull of Siren song, they're very happy with how they implemented it. I think that they did do a good job implementing it. I don't think that everyone is driven to do it because of them getting most of their cosmetics done. And most of the other people are just waiting till everyone is done rushing for it, and then they'll pick it up later. What's that, baby? My cat is meowing for some reason. All right, crisis averted. She just wanted out. Next, let's get into guilds. This was something that they've talked about since before launch. The system could create a social group. Mike talked about how this was something that they've wanted to do for a long time, that they realized that, again, they're trying to work out the balance of how we play in the game and focusing on the sandbox. Joe says that he likes the guild names and that he's noticed that the Straw Hat Pirates was a very popular guild name, and that he did actually love watching the live action series on Netflix. And Shelley said that it was a foundational system, that they will have more to kind of like bring to that system when they've kind of addressed some of the other concerns, which did kind of bring up more about like balance with like release dates and stuff and what they want to work on. Joe talked and it was kind of candid about the fact that running a live service is kind of like being in a river that is always flowing. And you don't really have an opportunity to just kind of, be at pause or be out of the river. You can't really get out of the river and relax for a moment. You're always just trying to dodge, the next upcoming rock, or you're trying to find something that will help kind of keep your head above the water. And you're always kind of like dealing with issues that are coming along. And that's something that is new to this studio. They've been doing it for about 5 years now, but they've consistently been trying to figure out the best method to run a live service game for the first time. It's something that not many of them have had experience with. And a lot of folks are going to say, okay, well, yeah, but it's been 5 years. Why haven't they figured it out then? And that's fair. I think that's where this balance conversation came into play, which I think was important to really kind of talk about, because I think they realized that there are going to be things that the community asks for versus things that the studio wants to do. And the desire to consistently go after something they've never done before is always a big draw. It's like a big shiny thing. And they're always kind of drawn to that shiny thing. And in this case, the shiny things were Hoarder's Hunt, or the Hoarder Mystery, guilds, and the Legend of Monkey Island. Those were the three kind of big shiny things compared to continuing adventures, adding tools to the sandbox, refining the combat. Those are all things that kind of we've been asking for to kind of have on a continued basis. We want the world to move forward with the story. We want the sandbox to be enriched. We want to have the issues that we're running into with cheaters and hit reg, things like that, to get addressed. And they realized that of all the years to have like the focus be on new, this is one of the years that it was probably the hardest for us to actually do that, especially coming off of Hourglass. Introducing Hourglass to the game brought with it, if I may, a plethora of hackers. And you might ask, well, how do you know if you have a plethora? It's enough that many people quit playing the game as a result. And as such, it's frustrating from a community perspective to feel like your issues or your concerns that are, in my opinion, valid, because they are a detriment to your experience, which is going to take you away as a monthly user, are not being responded to. And this kind of went into the next topic of cheating in Hot Topics, where John had kind of addressed the fact that this is something that Drew is now talking to us directly in the videos. You know, Drew has come out and addressed not only hit registration, but the server issues that were masking the fix for hit registration post season 10 launch. Additionally, going into deals about like what is considered an exploit and what is being and what is getting worked on, and kind of giving us an update on where the studio is at with the anti-hack, or is it anti-hack? No, what is it? The I don't know what you'd call it. I guess it'd be anti-hack. For some reason, I'm blanking on what that would be considered. And Joe came back and says that the question was how can we open up about these issues? And Joe responded that we've taken too long to get back in front of the community to talk about the issues and what they're doing about it. And I agree. I do think that, and this was something that he brought up, which I honestly, I still lament having the weekly things to kind of hear from the studio, where you would come down to the studio and you'd record an episode, and then it would get released, and we would have a weekly update kind of giving us a state of where the game is. But I also recognize, that there's only so much they can say. There's only so much they can really address every week. And they said that they would kind of still do one, but that has also kind of fallen to the wayside. We used to get at least like a monthly update, and then like, a teaser trailer for something coming up, and then like a deep dive. And the videos, honestly, because the content has been delayed due to it being tied so intrinsically to the seasonal releases, really did kind of kill a lot of the momentum for the game. Not to mention, a lot of the focus went to other areas. So where we were getting adventures and trailers that, I talked about earlier in this episode, do pretty well for the YouTube site as far as, drawing attention to the game. They all kind of went to the hoarder hunt stuff. They worked with the team to kind of build that out. But Mike came in and said that it's a renewed focus for the team, and informs us that the shape of the year is going to be around that and the features that are going to be coming. He said, quote, "We need to do a better job of inspiring and exciting for what's coming next." And that was kind of in response to, is Rare holding on to information too much? I don't want to say pridely or with pride, but they do have pride in their work. They do want it to be a surprise when they talk about it. This is something that I think really kind of goes back to conversations that I've heard and experienced and had. I mistakenly hit up Joe once in DMs on Twitter. It was like the one time I ever talked to him through DMs. And I basically said that I think the insiders needs to have the NDA lifted. The community needs to have a conversation about the changes that are coming to the game, given that the changes that are coming to the game can be hugely impactful. The NDA is not something that we can break, and there are repercussions for that. I think Rare's pretty kind about the NDA, to be honest. They're very, very lax about it, but it is in place to try and deter people from getting a bad idea or misinformation about a change that's coming up, And if you don't think that'll happen, if you think everyone will be super nice about it and everyone will be very considerate and understanding about the fact that this is, a state of a game that is not finished, and we can talk about it in respectable forms, I'll go back and address the slight confusion that was just the messaging behind closing the rare merchandise store. Like there will always be an issue where people do not listen or pay attention or relay information properly. But sometimes that's where content creation can help. If the insider program didn't have an NDA, that would afford us the opportunity as a community to help kind of curtail issues that may be caused as a result of as a result of testing. This is something that I see in other games. It works for the most part. The biggest issue that comes as a result of this is when there's enough people playing on insider content, and everything's out in the open, and they're developing it ahead of schedule for release. The people that are playing through the insider version are going to get tired of the content that's in there because they've already tested it, they've already played it, and they may not care to play through that on the live version, the retail version. And there's always going to be, that's going to be not a majority, but a portion of the community. The other trouble is that anything that you want to have that is going to be kind of like a cool surprise will have to be either kept out of insiders or so heavily guarded through code and encoding and encrypting that you have to take on a whole nother aspect of development that you normally shouldn't have to worry about. Because at the end of the day, if you've got story spoilers for something coming up and it's in insiders and there isn't an NDA, there's nothing preventing people from spoiling that for others. And as we've seen in the industry with things like Insomniac, when leaks or hacks happen and information gets out there, there's always going to be a group of people who seek that out, who want to be spoiled with it, and then can subsequently either spoil it for someone else, either purposefully or inadvertently, but will continue to share that information. And it may not be all of the information, which then again goes back to that whole Reddit post about the misinformation. So at the end of the day, the easiest thing that Rare can do is keep an NDA on insiders. The only alternative they have at that point is to be more open and communicative with their community. This again kind of goes back to the sticking to the old dogma that they had in the first year, where they talked about wanting to be as open and transparent as possible. These are their words. And to address that, you really have to take into account what the state of the game is and where the studio is 5 years down the line. And to be perfectly honest, to expect that is to expect that Joni is going to want to be at the helm for Sea of Thieves for the foreseeable future. I don't see him leaving the studio. I don't see him wanting to change his role or get away from executive producer. But if Craig ever gets to the point where he's done running a studio and just wants to go out and listen to music and get Marvel tattoos and watch football games, then that's going to leave an opening that one of the executive producers might want to step up into that studio role, at which point Joe would no longer be the executive producer. Someone else probably would come into that position. Hopefully you'd hire from within, and you'd have someone like Mike kind of take the helm, since he's already kind of like the head of lore and design. So it's not impossible to think of a time or a hypothetical that would come up that would say like, okay, well, the things that they said 5, 6, 7, 8 years ago need to stay true because they said it. You just have to kind of take things for what they are at the time and allow everyone to change their mind on it. What you guys may think was a good thing in the past or a bad thing in the past, you may not think is a good thing in the past or a good thing now or a bad thing now. How many of you guys were around during the Barrel 2.0 system that was introduced? A lot of people didn't like it. A lot of people said it took too long to get cannonballs and planks. As a result, you're gonna lose. You're not going to be able to survive. We've survived. We've all come across that. So everyone's, a lot of people have changed their mind about that. So kind of going into this even further, Shelly came back and said that she loves when we let people know what's coming sooner when it comes to topics and ideas and stuff like that. And to be clear, she's the one that's kind of been letting us know about the details towards safer seas, as well as letting us know that the time limited voyages are going to be going away with the next season, which is in January this month, I guess, at some point. I thought it was in February. It's actually going to be in January. So she's actually fairly happy with the idea of letting the community know about stuff ahead of time. It reduces the chances that things are going to get spoiled like fire, while also giving us an opportunity to give feedback about stuff too, because that's the other thing too. If we know it's coming and we can test it and we can talk about it, sometimes that's going to delay the process. And for bigger features, I think that's fine. I think for bigger features, it'd be better to know ahead of schedule so that we can actually, give our feedback and kind of poke at the holes and see if that's something that's been addressed. Because as we've seen with Hourglass, when you have people who are playing the game on a regular basis, from their perspective comes a lot of clarity on whether or not a system is actually going to work. And because of that, I think you run into a situation where, yes, Hourglass could be better because we helped feedback a lot of the potential issues with it. But when you don't do that, you're gonna launch something that's gonna have a lot of major issues with the community, and it's gonna cause more development time to be focused on that post launch, as opposed to not having a launch date and then just pushing it out and ensuring that there's more time to talk and kind of work on things, as opposed to, oh my God, now we have to put out fires. Joe talked about how some of the big lessons for this year, guilds being the most complex feature they've ever shipped after captaincy, which was also a complex feature. These were all things that they're going to be doing, and just as one big feature, trying to do that with the season is very hard. And recognizing that when you have a big feature and you want to tie it to something, you can't tie it to seasons. And this kind of goes back to the idea of them having like big kind of features like that, just kind of shipping when they're ready, instead of having them intrinsically tied to seasons. I think the feedback was clear. I think they recognize the harm that can come from trying to do something that is so massive and having that be a marquee feature for that season. You can still have a season come and go and have features launch. I honestly do think that you need to have something at the beginning of a season to draw people in. That is what draws people in. Other companies, the way that they do this is they kind of have like a new line of cosmetics that kind of coincide with that, and that is kind of the draw. But also their draw is the cool stuff that they have in the paid version of their season, is what draws people in to do it. And then they have events kind of going throughout. In Sea of Thieves, it kind of has that opportunity. I honestly think that they had a good stride where there was one adventure per season, there was one community day per season, there was one mystery per season, and they had like an idea of the flow that they wanted to have with that. And then you brought in big things like Hourglass, captaincy, guilds, things that they've wanted to do, Monkey Island, that they've wanted to do for a while. And that kind of really steps on the whole flow and focus of having normal seasons, right? And they recognize that, and they've kind of agreed that the best thing to do is for quality of life, for sandbox enrichment, for things like that, those will continue to ship with seasons, because they are good reasons to bring people back to the game at the start of a season, which is it's important to have that. Whereas bigger stuff, it'll come later on. And Mike chimed in and said that they realize that there isn't a magic recipe for what the community wants. You can't just find exactly what every member of the community wants and put that into a season and win. I think I've seen that with Destiny, where their seasonal growth and change has been slowly iterating upon itself over the last few years. And to be perfectly honest, while it's the best state that it's ever been, it's also the most stagnant it's ever been. And while the theme will change from season to season and the story will continue to progress from season to season, a lot of people are very bored with the kind of same repetitious process of going through the seasonal activities and stuff. And a company, even as much as Bungie has succeeded over the years with having a game as a live service, they are still running into problems where the stuff that they put out is the best stuff that they've ever put out, but it is also still stuff that the community will have umbrage with. And because of that, it's clear to see, like, yeah, Mike is right when he says that there's no magic recipe, there's no perfect formula for what you can put into a season that will please everyone, because you just can't do it. And a lot of that is just because of what Mike said, where everyone's at different stages in their game and their desires are going to be different from other folks. There's some people that are just getting into the game that have a ton of stuff to do, and adding more to that is just going to bog them down and distract them, where there are people who have everything done and nothing to do, and all they're doing is getting on just to talk with their friends on a boat, who are going to say that this is not enough content. There's always going to be folks somewhere along that spectrum, and to try and cater towards one or the other will ultimately cause you to fail. There's no good way to address all of them, and there's no good way to address just one. So sometimes you have to do a little bit of one and a majority of the other to try and give focus to one area and just try and find a way to build things that will be for everyone until someone speaks up loud enough that they are not being addressed, and then the team shifts focus to that based on where they're at with the development cycles. Then we got into feedback and Q&A before heading into teases. Mike talked about the Flameheart's eventual return. Will we get any more Reaper skeleton cosmetics was the question. They said yes. They haven't followed up with this, but they are thinking about how to expand upon that. That is great. I still can't put, I still do not like Hourglass. I still do not like the way it is. I still have more fun just sinking ships on adventure, and that just may be because I can have an element of surprise or have ways to get away from it. But that's just a me thing, you know, because I honestly, I'm on my ship solo most of the time. So when I do pop on for an hour and a half or two here or there to do something, genuinely, like I'm very kind of, you know, head on a swivel, looking around, trying to find stuff. And for me, I just can't put myself into the position where I want to deal with Hourglass. It is too much of an anxiety hurdle to get over for me to enjoy doing it. It's just a lot of pressure, and I don't go to play Sea of Thieves for that much pressure. It's why I didn't really enjoy Arena when they changed it to one chest. When it was multiple chests and there was a shift in focus and some people were attacking each other, some people were going after chests, and that focus would shift depending on scores. I think that the game was in a much more healthier state in that mode of Arena, but that is my personal opinion. That is not what actually was true about the game. I don't know that we'll ever find out what that is. But rest assured that more variants of skeletons for the Skeleton Curse will be coming to Hourglass, which is kind of a bummer for the Ghost, you know, for Athena's Vanguard. You know, like, what do they get? They get nothing. So it's kind of a shame there that Reapers get the benefit of that. So hopefully something would be coming for Athena as well. I do still think that area needs to be something that is more accessible for players. I do think that 50 should be able to let you into the area just to go talk to people and to browse things, to be able to like have an opportunity to get lore out of there. I don't think 50 is still a hurdle to get to. If you guys, if you're not over 100 now, chances are you're close to 50 or you haven't even touched Hourglass, and you probably would never will. But I hate that that's a hurdle. I really do hate that that's something that is restricting, in a world where they're saying there should be something for everyone, including the PvE players for Safer Seas. Having something for the PvP players is nice. Gating that off to the PvEVP or PvPvE people is frustrating. But again, that's my personal chip on my shoulder. I recognize that bias. They also talked about, will the Kraken get TLC? I'll be honest, I fought the Kraken yesterday on my sloop, and it was boring. It took 4 cannon shots, I think, or 3 cannon shots per tentacle. It took 2 tentacles. The red hit marker now tells me that the tentacle died. So as soon as I got 2 down, I went back to what I was doing, which was sailing towards the Siren Skull. They did say that they would like to go back to actually do something with that world event. They would love to, but it really just kind of is not a priority. They are focusing on enriching the sandbox, which in my opinion is something that would enrich the sandbox instead of, being like something that they wanted, but they do want to do something new. And again, the whole episode was about them realizing that chasing the new is not always the best course of action. This question to me kind of resonated to the fallacy in their thought, where they said that they recognized that the community was asking for a specific thing, and they decided to go after new features. The community is asking for Krakens to get TLC. They're saying that they would love to, but they're focused on doing something completely new. And I think that is a little like, come on, guys, you should kind of like realize what you're saying versus what the whole episode has been about. Just my opinion. It was one of those things, because I think that the Kraken has a lot of opportunity. And I think that the Kraken has even more opportunity, given that one of the other questions was, will there be anything happening with Hunter's Call? Will they get any kind of refresh? And they said that they can't explain why, but they have to reveal what's coming in 2024. They can't say what would be happening to it without revealing what is going on in 2024. That was Shelly that kind of spoke to that, but they have no plans currently to change the Hunter's Call. And Mike kind of recognized that there isn't really a whole lot of hunting in the Hunter's Call. It's all just fishing and cooking. And I do think that is something that the Kraken should be a part of. Megalodons should be a part of. You should be, you do have to hunt Krakens and Megalodons to get the meat to be able to cook, to be able to turn in. But you can find that meat in other fashions as well too. So it's not necessary for you to fight those to be able to get those commendations done, the Monster Hunter ones. And honestly, I think that the Kraken getting TLC would be a good way to say like, hey, we're going to focus on Hunter's Call. We're going to enrich that reputation. We're going to raise it up. We're going to add cosmetics to it. We're going to build in ways for you to go hunting for those and draw more attention to wanting to actually fight those creatures. It's a whole thing in Skull and Bones to go after these big giant creatures and have a reason to go do it. Now, whether or not that pans out for the long term, we'll have to see. But in Sea of Thieves, most people don't want to deal with a Megalodon unless it's white. No one wants to deal with the Kraken ever. And Mike talked about how they tried to address this with the second tall tale, with the Kraken, and being able to see its body and to be able to fight its head. And yes, that was a cool way to kind of take on the Kraken. And I think something like that is what people were desiring for adventure. But it's locked to the tall tale, unfortunately, and there's not really a way to bring that across at the moment. But I do think that is a big desire for a lot of folks. And I think it kind of goes back to the idea that we want to have some of the stuff that's in the game be iterated on, have growth, have change. So much of the world needs to have these little things, these little changes. We need to have reasons to do them again. And unfortunately, the draw for that's going to be cosmetics, because that's the only thing that really people care about. People don't really care about getting gold anymore, which I think that needs to be addressed more than anything. Honestly, the two things that I think that are harming Sea of Thieves right now are going to be hit registration and hackers, and the gold economy, not having ways to get rid of gold fast enough. If everyone was consistently out of gold, then everyone would finally have a reason to really go chasing after other ships or to fight for their loot even more. There's just no balance right now. Most people that play on a regular basis have millions upon millions. Even the people that don't play on a daily basis still have millions of gold and may not just be buying everything. And I don't know what the solution for this is. Unfortunately, I haven't really come up with a good fix for this. It's something that I think about on a regular basis, honestly, about how we can kind of address that. The only thing I can think of is to reduce the amount of gold that is actually obtained in the game. Safer Seas offers 30% of what the normal value is for items. Honestly, I think if the game took a lot of the costs for the higher end stuff and introduced things that were going to be kind of like, big, I think like the 100,000 gold things are good for kind of killing off some of your bank. It's just really messy right now. Maybe reducing all of the gold that's earned in the game is a way to do that. I've consistently said that I like to have more Golden Glory weekends, and I think that is a fun way to kind of go out and do that. I think that the problem with it now in retrospect is that people get a lot of gold and a lot of glory through renown or allegiance rep, whatever it is. Honestly, doing Hourglass during bonus weekends is the only time I actually really ever even consider it, because it's just such a grind. And I think that's a lot of people only want to do Hourglass when it actually gives double the reputation, because it is such a grind and it is not a rewarding grind at that. But additionally, because of that, there aren't enough things coming to the game to address the influx of gold. And as such, a lot of people have a lot of gold or none at all. You're either fresh to the game and don't have it, or you have a ton and you don't have anything that you want to buy or spend it on, or you've already bought it. So those are kind of like the two main things that I think Sea of Thieves should be focusing on for 2024. I think that them worrying about hackers and hit reg is admirable. I think that is 100% what we should be kind of addressing. And Mike goes on to kind of talk about, like, once that is addressed, then you can actually start to say, like, okay, well, once hit reg is no longer an issue, once hackers are no longer an issue, maybe then we can actually start to address bringing in different types of weapons or different types of ammos for weapons, or different types of supplementals to weapons. You can start to actually address that, as opposed to we need to actually make sure that the weapons work, because that is consistently been a main issue, a talking point over the years, that it's so much to the point that it's not even worth talking about, because nothing has really changed until the last couple of years. The other thing that was talked about, Flameheart, the eventual return. And Mike goes on to say that Flameheart is on his way, that you may have noticed that the orb is in the Reaper's hideout, and that it is drawn to whoever has the most power. Honestly, I really don't like the orb being something that is like a magical artifact in the game that is drawn to power, that is just going to be sitting in the Reaper's hideout at this point. I think the draw for the orb was its prophetic nature during the end of the year that would kick off the next year's worth of story through riddles or rhymes or, teases and stuff like that. When you just have the orb sitting in the Reaper's hideout and you're just waiting for it to do something, then it loses its luster of being something to look forward to at the end of the year. We used to look forward to Gilded Voyages at the end of the year. Those are gone. We didn't get one this year. Rip. And we didn't get an orb stream. And I think a lot of that is because they either aren't working with the team that used to produce that, or they just weren't certain about what things they wanted to tease given the nature of 2023, or a combination of both. And at that point, it's like, that's cool. That's fine. It was a cool thing. It was great that we got it twice. Obviously, the team is focused heavily on trying to make up for the fact that 2013 was just a rough year. And because of that, they didn't have time to build up a teaser session or a teaser stream for the orb to then give people an opportunity to get another colored version of the lantern. It's what it is. It's clear that 2023 was most definitely a misguided venture into the unknown, and a lot of folks are very reasonably bummed out by that. But I feel like Rare sees and is now speaking to that being the thing that is going to be remedied with 2023. Now I'm not going to hold them to any expectation for 2024 2024. If they hit it, awesome. If they don't, I understand. They're trying to work on what they can, and they're trying to focus on what they can. And whatever we get is what we get. And I will either, jump headfirst into it, or I will address those concerns at that time. But I'm not going to say like this needs to be the best year of Sea of Thieves has ever been, because that puts too much pressure on the studio. And honestly, I would rather see what the studio has coming for us when it's ready, but them being vocal about what's actually coming. I like that they told us that time limited voyages are going to be going away in season 11. I think more of that needs to happen. I think they need to be more open about the features and let the hype train start kind of rolling sooner than a week before it comes out, because that just doesn't really hit for people. I think if people know what's coming down the line, then it will be easier to kind of say like, oh, okay, well, I don't really know the full story, but that sounds cool or that sounds dumb. And that will give the team an opportunity to react. Whereas otherwise something will come out and it may do great, but then everyone realizes, oh, this isn't as great as I thought it was going to be. It doesn't have the lasting power. And that kind of gets us into the teasing section of the podcast, where they talked about like they want to change for the style of updates coming in 2024. They want to focus on hit reg and improving the reliability there. They want to give that does want to give them a license to be able to expand the weapon tree. Flameheart's feature will feature, and he's back, and that will grow over time, as well as features related to him. Flameheart is a very exciting part of 2024 and season 11 features that are going to change the fundamental level of how Sea of Thieves is. We'll have to see how that goes. And then they said that the fundamental level will be the last large change that is on par with guilds and captaincy, and how Sea of Thieves will feel, and having the ability to have shorter sessions is the focus with that, instead of having to set aside a whole day or an entire evening to be able to play. Overall, I was very happy with this episode. Aside from the bit about Mike not really recognizing a little bit of like us saying, hey, we want focus and iteration on old stuff instead of new stuff, and him saying, well, we're kind of focused on new stuff. That's kind of the issue that I have with the entire episode. But honestly, it was nice to hear them talk about them recognizing that enriching the sandbox will be a boon to all. That focusing on hit reg and hackers are going to be a boon for all, and that tying big features to seasons is where you run into the issue of delays, and it's better just to put out a season that has no big feature and kind of ensure that feature has time to mature and grow on its own outside of when a release schedule is, and then just put it out when it's ready, as opposed to delaying a season for 200 and some days, only to have people be frustrated when it comes out. And you see the comments, people are very mean about it. They're saying, oh, well, this is it. That's all that it is. It doesn't. And a lot of folks feel that way about guilds. They say guilds, that this is it. This is just captaincy for bigger groups. It didn't have the broad appeal that I think a lot of the team wanted. And I do think that was because the way that the system was implemented, you were in a guild and you had 3 options. I still think that I would have rather have had one guild with more members. If I could have 3 that were at 25 players per, which I don't think it's actually 25. I think it's 24. But if you could have 3 of those, I would much rather have one guild that was 100 players or 75 players as opposed to 3 separate ones, because then it frustrates people as a content creator. Now, you may never need that many, but I think that having 3 just kind of removes some of the focus on 2 other guilds, whereas one gets the most focus because everyone's putting their effort into there. As a point of perspective, the Keelhauled guilds that we have, the first one, the captain's one, where the most active people are in, that one's already prestiged to the first level, and it is gotten into the second level of renown, whatever it's called. The second guild is still in single digit levels, and I've tried to do some sailing on that guild specifically because we've already hit our level 1 distinction, but there just aren't enough players in that guild that are super active to push that guild level forward. So that one will always be behind the first guild. Whereas if this was one guild, it wouldn't matter how how active the other people are. Sure, there would be more people that are active than others, but at least everyone would be earning a little bit towards just one, as opposed to having to split it off. And that's kind of a bummer, which makes me want to then open up the second guild to anyone who isn't a patron, because then at least there would be some active players who aren't patrons who are helping push forward that other guild. And if that's what has to happen, then that'll happen. But it does kind of remove some of that ideal of rewarding the people who are supporting the content monetarily and not having room for them. Because what happens if they decide they do want to join one of those guilds and I don't have a spot open for them? It's an issue that very niche, I get, but still valid feedback in my opinion. All right, Pirates, I think that's going to do it for this episode. It is a much longer episode, obviously trying to cover a 1-hour podcast and give feedback on that, as well as my preview for Skull and Bones after not having an episode last week. Hopefully you guys enjoy this content and the discussion around it. I definitely want to hear your thoughts or feelings on it. So if you're in the Discord, make sure you're using the channels, the Keelhauled channel or the question and feedback channel, to let me know what you think about it. Additionally, if you're listening to this or watching it on YouTube, there's comment sections that I read for every single episode that goes out. Feel free to share there. If you want to share in other means outside of Discord or YouTube, you can always send an email to captlogun@gmail.com. I'm also over on X/Twitter and Threads at CAPT_LOGUN. And outside of that, I think that's going to do it. So Pirates, I hope you have a fantastic 2024. And do me a favor, take advantage of 2024 and dream bigger than you've ever dreamed before, and try and make something that didn't happen in 2023 happen this year. Take advantage of it and see where you can go with it. And hopefully it rewards you the way you deserve. Pirates, thank you. I love you, and I look forward to sailing with you on the Sea of Thieves.